أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to this Majlis al-Tarheem for the Eisal-e-Sawab of Marhuma Akhtar Akhlaque. I welcome all of the audiences from, here locally, New Jersey, and all around the globe. Inshallah, we will start the program with Sister Anjum Zaidi, who's the daughter of Marhuma, to give us some background about the Marhuma and some of the work that she's done, and just to introduce, inshallah, today's majlis. I would welcome Sister Anjum Zaidi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum to all. On behalf of all the members of the Akhlaq Hussain family from California, Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey, Toronto, Dubai to Pakistan, our heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for joining us today. And this is obviously going to be more difficult than I thought so, but we have to continue. To all my siblings, my family, my nieces, nephew, all my loved ones, you are really being missed today. I wish we could have been together, but inshallah, there will be years when we will do this together. For the past 3 years, our very dear sister Naseem had gathered us all together in Islamabad to remember Ammi Jan on her birthday. While each one of us, from the children to the grandchildren, made all our efforts to spend whatever time we could manage with Ammi. Naseem was the one who was there for Ammi throughout and was willing to give up everything for Ammi Jan. And she is still the glue that binds us together. And I pray that Allah reward her with whatever makes heaven on earth. And we continue to pray for her. We, inshallah, plan to continue our together tradition in the years to come. This year, of course, was different. So we are thankful to all of you that you could make the effort to be with us today. And we can still remember Ma with the love and prayers that we always do. And those of you who knew Ammi, who spent time with her and who touched her life in so many ways, thank you for making life special for her, even when she was going through a lot of pain and illness. When we thought of organizing this majlis, the only person I could think of to recite this majlis was Maulana Rizwan. And we appreciate that he made the time, because I have heard him recite several Eisal-e-Sawab Majlis on the role of mothers and parents, and he has always touched my heart. Our family also had the privilege of performing Hajj under his kind guidance in 2014, and for that we are forever indebted to him. I am also grateful to my brothers Shehryar, Haider, and Bahib Rizvi for agreeing to recite on such a short notice. All mothers are made special, and Ammi was no exception. She was truly the embodiment of all the qualities of an exceptional human being and an exemplary mother. She lost her father very young, but Ammi Jan would become the matriarch of the family, keeping her siblings together, helping them through to their callings in life and guiding them throughout her own life. At a time when few women left home, Ammi Jan was a pioneer. She was a highly educated and professional woman traveling the world while raising 8 children. When we lost our father over 35 years ago, she took on the role of both parents. Her biggest moments of pride and joy were the academic professional achievements of her children and her grandchildren. Ammi Jan also taught us about faith. In the face of biggest calamity a parent could experience, her unshakable faith not only helped us, but for each one of us. She was honest, truthful, and brave. Her golden words she would always say to me whenever I was worried about something was, Inshallah, Allah sab theek karega. And I still hear her voice echo in my ears whenever I feel a little worried or uncertain. Before she left us, Ma was hospitalized for several weeks. 6 months before she actually passed away, Ammi spent several weeks in the hospital. And during that stay in the hospital, I encountered some hospital staff, some medical staff who made a few comments, which I would like to share with you. There was a group of them who came into the room one day and said to me, We, of course, from abroad took our trips as we could manage, but they came and they said कि आंटी जान हमने हमारे पास बहुत बुजुर्ग आए बहुत आते हैं मगर हमने आंटी जान सबसे ज़्यादा लकी हैं क्योंकि हमने देखा है कि नसीम बाजी तो हमेशा यहीं रहती हैं और आप लोग सब इतनी दूर दूर से आते हैं और हमने कभी इनको अकेला नहीं देखा. And I turned around and I just suddenly heard myself saying कि अम्मी जान तो लकी नहीं है क्योंकि ये तो इनका हक है. हम लोग खुश किस्मत हैं आप लोग हमारे लिए खुश हों कि हमें अपने फ़राइज़ याद हैं because we could not in a long lifetime we could never pay her back for what she had given to us. And the other comment that I quite often heard from them was कि आंटी जान कभी दर्द की शिकायत नहीं करती कभी जब भी पूछो कहती हैं मैं ठीक हूँ अल्लाह का शुक्र है तो हमें पता नहीं चलता कि इनके साथ क्या हो रहा है. In the worst of pain, in the most excruciating of pain, we never heard her complain, and that was a strength that I wish that we could all inherit from her. While we continue to miss her every moment of our lives, she is surely in a better place, inshallah reaping all the rewards of the goodness she left behind. Thank you all again, and I will now request Shahryar to continue with the program. And to all of you, once again, I pray that you all stay healthy. This is a difficult world we are going through. May Allah protect and bless you all and lead us all to a happier, healthier, and better world soon, inshallah. Shari?
Thank you for those inspiring words. Dear family, friends, and respected elders, Assalamu alaikum. We begin with the recitation of Surah Yasin. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Yasin wal Qur'anil hakim. Innaka laminal mursalina ala siratim mustaqim. Tanzil al-azizir rahim. لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم فإن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآيات لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مسلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآيات لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين قرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق قوله على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا وإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. I would like to request Brother Wahib Rizvi to recite Salam al-Marsiyah.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you, Sharyar. So my apologies to the non-Urdu speaking audience here, if any, because this part of the Majlis has traditionally been in Urdu, and I will continue in Urdu as well. And it's just despite of best efforts from a number of people, the the limitations of vocabulary in the English language has just not led itself to a proper and just translation to the rich poetic tradition that we have here in the form of Salam and Marsiya. So I will continue in Urdu. But Muhammad Ali Muhammad Salawat. जनाब सैयद कौनैन की खिदमत में तीन शेरों की पेशकश है. एक दफ़ा दुरूद की गुजारिश. मरियम से भी बुतूल को रुतबा सेवा मिला मरियम से भी बुतूल को रुतबा सेवा मिला बाबा से रसूल सा खैरुल वरा मिला शौहर मिला तो खल्क का मुश्किल कुशा मिला बेटा उसे शहीदो शहे करबला मिला بیٹا اسے شہید و شہ کربلا ملا سب اپنے اپنے مرتبے میں انتخاب ہیں سب اپنے اپنے مرتبے میں انتخاب ہیں زہرا ہے بے نظیر علی لاجواب ہیں زہرا ہے بے نظیر علی لاجواب ہیں مریم سے بھی بطول کو
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ایک والدہ کی ایصال ثواب کی مجلس ہے تو اسی مناسبت سے جناب سیدہ سلام اللہ علیہ کی شہادت سے منسوب مرثیے کے چند بند پیش خدمت ہیں ایک درود کی گزارش
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
جب داخلے بہشت رسول خدا ہوئے جب داخلے بہشت رسول خدا ہوئے یعنی جہاں سے راہی ملک بقا ہوئے محزون و دل ملول شہلا فتح ہوئے سبتین غم میں نانا کے صرف بکا ہوئے صدمہ ہر ایک کو تھا جناب رسول کا پر حال غیر سب سے سوا تھا بطول کا پر حال غیر سب سے سوا تھا بطول کا ایک روز جبرائیل نے زہرا سے یہ کہا نزدیک ہے وصال جدائی کا غم نہ کھا مجدہ قضا کا سنتے ہی سجدہ ادا کیا بولی ہزار شکر ملا دل کا مدعا سرخی سے مردنی کے عوض رخ پہ چھا گئی، جنت میں جانے کے لیے طاقت بھی آ گئی، جنت میں جانے کے لیے طاقت بھی آ گئی، بستر سے تھر تھرا کے اٹھی تھام کر عصا، قبر نبی پہ فاتحہ آخری پڑھا، ہمسایوں کے گھر گئی رخصت کو اور کہا، لو صاحبو سجل کرو اب کچھ ہے میرا، ایزا تھی تم سبوں کو میرے شور و شین سے، کل فاطمہ نہ ہوگی تم سو، کل فاطمہ نہ ہوئے گی تم سو نہ چین سے، کل فاطمہ نہ ہوئے گی تم سو نہ چین سے، رو کر کبھی حسن کو گلے سے لگا لیا، آغوش میں حسین کو گاہے بٹھا لیا، رخصت کیا کسی کو بلا لیا، پڑھنے کے واسطے کبھی قرآن اٹھا لیا، کہتی تھی گاہ بچوں سے منہ اپنا موڑ کے، کل سونے گھر میں سونا ہے بستی کو چھوڑ کے، کل سونے گھر میں سونا ہے بستی کو چھوڑ کے، سن لو وصیتیں میری اس وقت یا امام، فضا سے میرے بعد عدالت سے لینا کام، ہوشیار فاطمہ کی امانت سے صبح و شام، دو بیٹیاں دو بیٹے ہیں بس اور خدا کا نام، میں نے بڑے دکھوں سے یہ سب بچے پالے ہیں، حق کے حوالے تم یہ تمہارے حوالے ہیں، حق کے حوالے تم یہ تمہارے حوالے ہیں، ہے آرزو کے قبر میں مجھ کو حسن لٹا، شبیر میرے مردے کا منہ قبلہ کو پھرا، پھر خود کا نہیں بچہ نہ ڈر نہ جائے، नागाह खेलते हुए दोनों यतीम आए, छाती लगा के बोली के लो हम तो मरते हैं, तुमसे सुलूक देखिए क्या लोग करते हैं। बेटों का हाथ हाथ में ज़ैनब के फिर दिया, ज़ैनब पुकारी खैर है अम्मा ये क्या किया, ये शेर हक के शेर हैं, दुखिया शिकस्ता पा, आदिल की बेटी हो तुम्हें इंसाफ है रवा, लाजिम था सौंपना मुझे एक एक भाई को, बेटे सुपुर्द करती हो तुम अपनी जाई को, बेटे सुपुर्द करती हो तुम अपनी जाई को, लेकर बलाएं बेटी की ज़हरा ने ये कहा, रोती तो हूँ ज़्यादा न ज़ैनब मुझे रुला, कुछ भाइयों के सौंपने का समझी मुद्दोआ, तू उनकी रोने वाली है ज़हरा तेरे फिदा, क्या बस मेरा जो मर्ज़ी परवरदिगार है, ज़ैनब तमाम कुनबे की तू सोगवार है, ये कहती थी कि गश ने दिया मौत का पयाम, हुजरे से निकले रोते हुए रबा तमाम, तरतीब लाश के लिए बाहर गए इमाम, ज़हरा ने आ मुसल्ले पे अपना किया क़याम, लिखा है बस नमाज इशा की अदा हुई, और गुल उठा के बिनते नबी की क़ज़ा हुई, और गुल उठा के बिनते नबी की क़ज़ा हुई, जब दाखिले बहिश्त।
Jazakallah Waheeb for that beautiful recitation. I just want to mention on a personal note, Marhuma Akhtar Akhlaque was my khala, my mother's eldest sister. But such was the respect and love that we all had for her, all of her nieces and nephews. We did not call her khala or puppo, we called her Akhtarami. She was like a mother to us, she was a mother to us, and we were all her children. So, great, great lady. Please, let's all recite a Surah Fatiha for Akhtar Akhlaque Hussain. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. It's now my honor to request Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi, the resident alim of Masjid-e-Ali in New Jersey, to recite today's majlis. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you very much, Sharyar Bhai. And before I begin, I would like to request Surah Fatiha for the following Marhumin. Marhuma Akhtar Akhlaque bint Muhammad Taqi Mirza, Marhum Syed Akhlaq Hussain ibn Syed Ishaq Hussain, as well as Marhum Syed Abbas Kazim ibn Syed Akhlaq Hussain, and as well as all of your Marhumin and deceased relatives. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله لحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذ قالت امرأة عمران رب إني نذرت لك ما في بطني محررا فتقبل مني إنك أنت السميع العليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to this Majlis Aza, Majlis Tarheem for the Eisal-e-Sawab of Marhuma Akhtar Akhlaque. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate the status of Marhuma, give her a place in the Jivar of Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam. We are going through difficult times during this pandemic, and therefore to give proper respect and homage to a lady of her caliber, and the little that I know and what I've found out in the just recently, imagine that she was a very courageous woman. As the daughter of Marhuma spoke very eloquently, I don't want to add anything else of what she had said that I would not do justice to. But what I could make out of the personality of Marhuma is that she was well versed in secular as well as the religious fields. And not only that she excelled in the secular education, but from the religious perspective as well, how she was able to impart her knowledge and leave this trust to her children and extended family, as her nieces and nephews around the world would be proper testimony to that. With that said, inshallah, we'll be dedicating this Eisal-e-Sawab Majlis for this Marhuma, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the time passes, as the days are going by, as the years are passing of the passing away of the Marhuma, of course, there's no replacement for a mother, regardless of how old or young a mother be. There's no replacement. It's an irreplaceable loss. With that said, always a person of no matter what age they may be in, maybe they themselves become parents or even grandparents, but they seek refuge in certain individuals. And I think mother serves that, that refuge perfectly. That when we are down in our lives, when we are not feeling well, when we are, struck by something that is affecting us, stress, depression, and the best comfort that could be given is in the arms of the mother. And therefore we find, because it comes from the immense love a mother has for, her children. regardless of, what, where, and when, and how the children may be. But this motherly love is blind in this reference. And she would go out of her way to do whatever it is possible to go ahead and make sure that the children are safe, secure, and provided for, even if she is suffering from that. And there's a very beautiful segment in reference to this, which I will refer to you. I may not be able to address that because that is not part of the speech today. It is in the book of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, alayhi salatu wassalam. And it's just called the Treatise on Rights, or Risalatul Huquq, in which Imam والسلام, mentions 50 different huquq and the rights of things and individuals. And amongst those individuals, he mentions the rights of a mother. I have spoken about that in the past, so I won't go in that detail again. But I would refer to all of the audiences who may not have read through this, just to read this one passage, which is not very long. Of course, it requires in-depth analysis and explanation, but just read through that one passage. You'll see how our fourth Imam, coming from the kalam of a wise Imam, how he has expressed his feeling in reference to mother. Before, of course, he was also a son of a mother, so he expresses these emotional attachment that he has with his mother, as well as to all the mothers in the world. So we find that is a very beautiful segment from the Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on rights. Today, and in some places it may be actually tonight, because right now here it's about 12 noon in New York vicinity, but I believe we have audiences from all the way from India, Pakistan, Philippines, and even other places, which it might be very late over there. So I apologize for the late start. I mean, we started on time, but it's late for you. Inshallah, we'll try and wrap it up within 45 minutes to 50 minutes. The ayat that I chose for today's discussion, something which I find myself to be very fascinating amongst the stories in Quran. My discussion will entirely be based on Quran. And in reference to women in Quran, I thought it would be appropriate on this occasion, when we are commemorating Eisal-e-Sawab Majlis, that to speak about different women that are mentioned with their courage, because we are in a Majlis of Eisal-e-Sawab of a very courageous woman. The ayat that I chose is from Surah Al-Imran, ayat number 35, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, remember when Imran's wife, وَإِذْ قَالَتْ إِمْرَأَةُ إِمْرَانَ, Imran's wife prayed to her Lord, saying, I have made a vow to dedicate to your service whatever is in my womb. Lord, accept it from me. You are all hearing and all knowing. Just to give a background of, the wife of Imran, this personality which is mentioned in Quran, and Surah Al-Imran is named after him, is an important personality. And so just a background of what the discussion is about before we get into the different women that are mentioned. There are two sisters, Hannah and Ashia. Hannah, or Hanana, is married to Imran, as is referred to as Imra'atu Imran. Her name is not mentioned in Quran. And her sister Ashia is married to Prophet Zachariah. Hannah, or Hanana, had been married for a long time while she had no kids. One day she saw bird feeding, it's, little birdies, little kids, providing for them, as how the birds, we have seen how they provide for the little ones. She requested Allah for a child of her own. Seeing that scene, it ignited that motherly love in her as well. And therefore we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard her plea, her dua, and accepted it. And then he sends wahi and revelation to Imran. He addressed Imran with the wahi that he will be given a child who will be able to cure those who cannot be cured by anyone. And he will be given the ability to bring people back to life after they have died. and he will be a prophet for Bani Israel. Imran, now, however, he received this news, whether it was behind the curtain or through an angel or, with inspiration, he was given this revelation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's excited. He also, is suffering from not having any children. So he's excited upon seeing this sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after hearing this, Imran, and his wife, they thought that, when Allah is mentioning that we will send someone, will give you bestow a child who will cure, many diseases which cannot be cured by anyone else, who will bring people who have died back to life again, if he wishes, and he will be made amongst the messengers. So here, looking back in their history, all the messengers have been male. So they're thinking that they will be given a male child. But to their surprise, because they did not know what was in the womb of the mother, while this baby appears, Hazrat Maryam's mother, she makes this vow that, oh Allah, whatever is in my womb, I dedicate it for your service. And back in the day, it was normal that, children who are male to go ahead and serve the church, to go ahead and serve the, places of worship. So that's why she made this covenant to dedicate this child for the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said, Inni nadartu laka ma fi batni. I vow to dedicate whatever is in my womb. Muharraran fataqabbal minni. And therefore accept this from me. Innaka antas samiul alim. Indeed, you hear everything and you are all knowledgeable. She thought it was son, so she used the masculine title, muharraran. She did not say muharraratan. That's the difference in Arabic. If you were to use for mu'annath, you would have used this ta, which is ta marbuta, which is for mu'annath, for tanith. She said muharraran, thinking that it would be a son. Children who were sent to the place of worship for keeping it clean, for example, for other services, to lead the services, they weren't responsible for parents. So that's why the word muharrar is used. Actually means that they were free from all worldly affairs. That's why this word muharrar, which comes from the root word of tahrir, that means to be free from all of these. But when she gives birth to a daughter. A girl is born. She says, فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا قَالَتْ رَبِّي إِنِّي وَضَعْتُهَا أُنْثَى. She gave birth. She said, oh my Lord, I have given birth to a daughter. وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا وَضَعَتْ. And indeed, Allah knows what I have given birth to. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. And a male child is not same as a female child. These are all her words. Now she's thinking what? She's thinking, I've made this vow. I've made this covenant that I want to dedicate my son who will be given to me for the dedication of this, the house of Allah, house of worship. And so he'll be free of all of the worldly needs. But how can I send a daughter for these services? That means my covenant will not be fulfilled. So these are all her, thinking. And that's the reason, in fact, Allah uses exactly her words. These are the words that are uttered from her own tongue. She said, "Laysat dakaru kal unsa." In fact, it should have been the other way around. I'll give you an example. She said, a male child is not same as a female child. She should have said what? A female child is same as a male child. Why? You compare that which you have with what you don't have. She's not giving a male child. She did not give birth to a male. She gave birth to a female. So she should have said, a female is not like a male. But instead, she says, a male is not like a female. So this, in her mind, she may have been given or the understanding at that time. So these are the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses that, she used and she uttered. Although she should have used the word, female first, and she should have used the word male after. But with that said, then she said, Inni sammaytuha Maryam. Now I'm content with what you have given to me. So that's fine. you know, what you have given to me. I have gone ahead and named her what? I've gone ahead and named her to be Maryam. And, you know, her name is chosen by the mother. وَأُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And I hope that, you know, take refuge in you for her, and as for the zurriyat and the children and the progeny come. Maryam literally means someone who's a worshiper, someone who's a caretaker. She named herself and made dua for the, you know, for her children as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. So this is a communication, if you want to see, is happening. He says, فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا. Thereupon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord, accepted her with a gracious acceptance and made her grow up in a worthy fashion. With this background of the birth of Hazrat Maryam, salamullah alayha, and the life of, you know, her mother and her aunt, and the two individuals by the name of Imran and Zakaria, is a fascinating story for us to learn a great deal of lessons from it. So I'll begin as far as the women in Quran are concerned. The first and the foremost, we'll talk about Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha. You know, she's someone that within the same surah, a few ayat later in ayat number 42 of Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he refers to introduce Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha, he introduces her with what? He says, Inna ya Maryam, inna Allah astafaki wa tahharaki wa astafaki ala nisa'il alamin. That, oh Maryam, that you have attained a status, that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you, istafaki, wa tahharaki, and purified you. And then repeats the word istafaki, and have chosen you, to emphasize that nobody's above you, at least in that era. We find that this taharaki had to be included, and that also denotes the fact of her ismat and her infallibility. Similar word is used when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the holy household of the Holy Prophet. He says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. The word يُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا, and over here وَطَهَّرَكَ. Both of them are from the same, where we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just talking about, you know, the purification that you and I have on a regular basis, that we clean ourselves, or by taking a shower, or by washing our hands, or by doing all of those things, we clean ourselves. That's not the purity which is being referred to. This is the purity of infallibility which is being referred to. And that is the reason Janab Maryam salamullah alayha remained unmarried. She did not marry. The son that is born to her is Hazrat Isa, who was the actual, you know, wahi that was revealed to the grandfather Imran. That son is born without marriage. So she remained unmarried. Why did she remain unmarried? Because she's ma'asum, or ma'asuma. She's infallible. And a ma'asuma cannot marry anyone who's ghayr ma'asum. So there was no kufr, there was no one equal to her in her status. Istafaki wa taharaki wa stafaki. Therefore she remained unmarried. Similar is the case of Bibi Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. That Prophet said, if it wasn't for Ali, or if Ali was not born, then Fatima Zahra would remain unmarried as well, because she would not have a kufr, or someone who's equal as far as her status is concerned. We see that a woman can attain the same status as the seal of the Prophet Hazrat Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. He is referred to as Muhammadun al-Mustafa. Janab Maryam is referred to as, when Allah says, Inna Allah astafaki. A woman can attain the state where Allah will send food from the heavens for her. You know, this is where, when she was serving in the house of Allah, she was sitting in the mihrab, you know, the ayat would be revealed. Or rather, Hazrat Zakaria, when he would come and check upon her, he would see that there's food. While the door was locked, nobody could go in and out. He would right away question, Anna laki hadha. Oh Maryam, where did you get this food from? It's not accessible for anyone to come in and out. And she would respond that this is from my Rabb, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a Nabi of the time, Hazrat Zakaria, is, is surprised by the fact that he's the Nabi, but yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this special inayat toward, Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha. We see that Maryam is not an ordinary individual. She was referred to in Quran as also Siddiqa. It says, Mal Masih ibn Maryam illa rasulun qad khalat min qablihi ar-rusul wa ummuhu Siddiqa. That his mother is Siddiqa. This is what is referred to him as. We see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Janab Maryam salamullah alayha a great deal of respect. That vow that was made by the mother of Hazrat Maryam, that I will, dedicate. Now we see that there's a vow that is being made by Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha as well, when it's time for her labor and when it's time for her to give birth. When her mother was given birth, she was thinking she will give birth to a boy who could serve, but what she got was Hazrat Maryam. She was content with it and fulfilled her covenant. Now it's the turn of Hazrat Maryam, who's about to give birth, and she's in such a pain that only women can understand. She says, I wish I was nasiyan mansiya. I was forgotten. I did not exist before all of this bearing of this pain that I'm facing now. And then she also made a covenant. She said, Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawman falan ukallima al-yawma insiya. That when she gave birth to Hazrat Isa salamullah alayhi, she said that I will not speak to anyone today. This is a vow that she's making. Someone might say, well, is it allowed for us to go ahead and make a fast of sukut? That means not to speak. In our Shariat, it is not permissible to, make a covenant or make a fast of sukut. Sautus, Sawm sukut is not permissible. But this Sawm sukut, which Janab Maryam is making, was for a reason. So that she doesn't talk to anyone and that her newborn will be defending her, the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to produce. So it's not permissible, but it's amongst the adab of fasting actually to control one's tongue from pollution and from excessive talk. This is where our sixth Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, Inna as-sawma laysa min at-ta'ami wash-sharabi wahda. That this fasting is not just refraining from eating or drinking. He said, Inna Maryam qalat inni nadartu lirrahman sawman. And he refers to this ayat of Quran where Hazrat Maryam said that I will refrain from speaking to anyone. Ay samtan. That means what? Fahfadhu al-sinatakum. Protect your tongues. Don't make a covenant of not talking, but protect your tongues from saying things which are not permissible for you to utter. وَغَضُّوا أَبْصَارَكُمْ. Protect your eyes. Lower your gaze upon which that is not permissible for you to see. وَلَا تَحَاسَدُوا وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا. And do not have any jealousy and do not cause any conflict amongst yourself. These are all parts of fasting. You thought, only refraining from food and drink was fast? No, it's beyond that. Vow means making it obligatory upon yourself to do an act or refrain from, so that you can go ahead and please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A formula of declaration of making this, so this covenant is uttered, only then it will be applicable. And if one does not perform it, then of course there will be kafara that is due upon you. But aside from that discussion, second woman that I want to talk about, mentioned in Quran, is the mother of Hazrat Musa salamullah alayhi. A woman can attain the status of being the recipient of the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the previous discussion, mother of Hazrat Maryam she expressed the feeling, but the wahi came to Imran. Here, the wahi and the revelation from Allah comes to mother of Hazrat Musa salamullah alayhi. A woman can attain that status where she's the recipient of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ayat of Quran is clear in this reference. There's no ambiguity. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ, that we reveal to mother of Moses, nurse him. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِهِ أَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ, then when you fear for him, cast him into the river. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّ رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. The similar promise which was made to Hazrat Imran for the someone that will be given to you who will cure those who have different diseases, who will bring people back to life, and who will be amongst the apostles. Not same in wording, but at least it's giving the same connotation. That if you fear for his life, cast him into the river. And do not feel fear and grief. This is an unusual request from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is asking a mother to put a newborn, an infant, take it away from the mother and put him into the river and to let him go and not fear and not grieve. Motherly love could be a very challenging thing. Two things we get out of this. One, motherly love is where a mother is willing to do whatever. She can't stand a child crying, so she'll do whatever she can to make the child satisfied. And then sometimes this motherly love goes to the extent where she will bear some pain if it entails in the betterment and the security and the safety of her child. So for example, if a child is suffering from some illness and it requires surgery, the mother knows the surgery will be painful. She knows that it'll be very difficult for the child of that age. But she knows that after the surgery is successful, the child will be free of this illness. So she's willing to take that risk. She's willing to go through that painful process so that there's what? There's light on the other side of the tunnel. So you find that while she cannot even stand if a child is crying for a small thing, she's willing to go through the difficulty of putting the child in danger so that there's a better outcome at the end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping the same or giving the same perspective to the mother of Hazrat Musa. That yes, if you fear for him, instead of keeping him to yourself, cast him into the river. Put him into this basket, cast him into the river. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي, and do not fear and do not grieve. إِنَّ رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكَ, because we will return him to you. This is our promise. And وَجَعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, and we will make him amongst the apostles. We see that in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave two orders to the mother of Hazrat Maryam, mother of Hazrat Musa. Two orders are an ardi'i fa'alqi, nurse him and cast him into the river. Refrained her from doing two things. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي, don't fear and don't grieve. And gave two glad tidings. إِنَّ رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, that we will return him back to you and that we have made him into a messenger. We see that how beautifully that there's two orders, there are two amr, there are two nahi, and then there are two glad tidings to wrap it all up. And Hazrat Maryam's mother, or Hazrat Musa's mother, of course, being a mother, she is not like Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha. She is not someone who's istafaki wa taharaki. She's not a ma'asuma by any means. But this is where we find that she fulfills this. Third woman that I want to talk about, I don't have a great deal of time that I want to go through this quickly, is the wife of Pharaoh. She's an example for all the believers, male or female. Look at her trust. Look at her determination. She has all the wealth in the world, all the power in the world. Whatever she wants to accomplish, she can. But all she wants is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She, in fact, becomes the reason from protecting Hazrat Musa from Fir'aun and his wrath and from murdering him. But first she makes her dua herself. In Surah Tahrim, ayat number 11, she makes وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا. Allah actually is giving the parable of the wife of Fir'aun. امرأة فرعون إذ قالت ربي ابني لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون. That, oh my Lord, build me a house near you in paradise and deliver me from Pharaoh and his conduct, and deliver me from the wrongdoing lot. That these people who are amongst the Zalimin. She's making this dua. As I mentioned before, that she's a woman who protected Hazrat Musa والسلام, who was killing on this rampant of killing all the babies that were born in that year, because someone has said a baby would be born this year who will, topple your government, and it will be your end of your era. So of course he goes on what? He said, every child that is born this year, remove them, kill them. She said, وقالت امرأة فرعون قرة عين قرة عين لي ولك ولا لا تقتلوه عسى أن ينفعنا أو نتخذه ولدا. That don't kill him when this baby arrives on their doorstep, and Pharaoh is ready to kill because this is another child for him. She says what? He said, may he be, this infant will be a source of comfort for me, because they were also deprived of, not having children. And don't kill him. Maybe he will benefit us, or we will adopt him as a son. Someone who's the most powerful of their time, someone who's got everything in their possession. Yet they see what? They're seeking benefit from a child, and so that he could be a future for them. You see the zu'uf and the weakness of humans, that how with having everything in their possession, still they feel and they fear for the future. Fourth woman that is mentioned in Quran is the mother of Hazrat Ismail alayhi wasalam, which is Hazrat Hajar. A woman can attain this status where all of mankind is ordered to imitate her in one of the major worships, in one of the major ibadat, which is Hajj. Were it not to be followed, the whole entire ibadat will be in jeopardy and in question. Marhuma's daughter mentioned that they performed Hajj with me back in 2014. And it was an amazing experience, I'm sure, for them. Anyone who goes for this Hajj, it's an amazing experience for them. I was speaking the other day in reference to Hajj, and I had mentioned this, that Hajj is one of the most, of course, we're going through this pandemic, and Hajj is being performed very, limited basis. Only locals are performing it this year. But inshallah, we hope that we come out of this pandemic, and next year, those who are, willing to go and perform this ibadat, they'll get chance to go and do so. That it is amongst those ibadat which breaks your arrogance, which breaks your, kibriyai, if you have any, takabbur, if you have any. Because when you arrive at miqat, you put on this 2 pieces of clothing, where you leave your egos behind, where you leave your, your bodily structure behind, and your souls move on without any, superiority, because you're all dressed in the same way. You can't tell when you are circumambulating around the Kaaba that who's a minister, who's a president, who's a king, who's, a doctor, who's a physician, who's an engineer, who's a lawyer, who's an alim-e-din, who's a scholar, who's a ayatullah, who's marja-din, none. Or who's an ordinary person. Or at least that's how it should be. No protocol should be given. That they're all walking around in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of the egos are shattered. Everything is left behind. When you took off those that clothing back in miqat, you took off that libas of vanity that you had put on upon yourself, and you moved on without it. So this Hajj does that to people. It has that charm. I quoted Shariati that in his book Hajj, he talks about that Hajj does not begin when you put on this, ihram. It does not start when you do tawaf around Kaaba. It does not start when you do, walk between Safa and Marwa, which you are imitating the mother of Hazrat Ismail, that what this mother was running back and forth between Safa and Marwa in order to find the water. Hajj does not start when you do taqsir, or when you go to Arafat, or when you stay over in Muzdalifah, or you spend time in Mina and you strike the shaitan, you perform tawaf al-nisa and all of those activities. Hajj has not begun. The moment you leave Mecca and you come back home, that's when Hajj begins. Allah wants to see, have you changed? Allah wants to see, have you brought any reform in you? Or was it just a waste of a lot of money and time for you? So from that Hajj is this walk between Safa and Marwa. To the extent that walking, which Hazrat Hajar did, became an important part, integral part of Hajj, that you have to perform it. Without it, Hajj will not be accepted. And then also for men, for that 40 meter, to perform this called harwala, to jog and not just walk. You see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to imitate a woman who did this act out of the love for her son, because he was thirsty. There was no drink, there was no water for him. And with this miracle, Zamzam appears, which people are still benefiting until this day. So that is the mother of Hazrat Ismail. Fifth woman that I want to touch upon very briefly, that I'm running out of my time, is sister of Hazrat Musa. In our tradition, her name is Kulthum, but some of us have, missed it by making a mistake sometimes, calling her to be Maryam or Miriam. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran refers to Hazrat Maryam, mother of Hazrat Isa, to be Ya Ukhta Harun, oh, the sister of Harun. Harun is brother of Hazrat Musa. And therefore, they called, if she's sister of Harun, then she's sister of Musa as well. So when the sister is referred, they consider her to be Maryam, where that is not true. Maryam, salamullah alayha, their times are different. The reason that Allah says, Ya Ukhta Harun, there are many reasons behind it. Because Hazrat Harun was referred to as a very pious individual. When these people who were questioning Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha for this baby that she had brought, this child was born without a husband, and therefore they're saying to her what? Ya Maryam, your father was not a bad man. Your mother was not a rebellious woman. And your Ukhta Harun, you're the sister of Harun. And with all of these pieties attached, they were trying to tarnish her, her character. And so she pointed toward her son and he spoke. So we see that Ukhta Harun, she followed this sister of Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, is referred to as Kulthum in our riwayat. She followed the little vessel in which Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was placed to see where it ends up being. In fact, it was an order from her mother. Musa gave this order to her daughter that go follow along. She said to him, وَقَالَتْ لِأُخْتِهِ قُصِّيهِ, the sister's role that, follow him and continue following, see where this vessel ends up being. I want eyes on your brother. Although Allah said, لَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي, but I want eyes on your brother because I'm placing him into this vessel and putting him into the river. And if he was trained, it seems as if that the sister of Hazrat Musa, Kulthum as her name is mentioned, seems that she was trained to be in the ministry of information. I say this why? Because child needs milk and he won't drink any. Kulthum follows along so that nobody sees. فَبَصَرَتْ بِهِ عَنْ جُنْبٍ وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, that she walked along so that nobody would notice. So she was, sort of like unnoticeable. And then she said, when she sees that the child is crying, he's not, drinking anything, and nobody's able to nurse, she says what? She says, هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَىٰ أَهْلِ بَيْتٍ يَكْفُلُونَهُ لَكُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ نَاصِحُونَ. May I show you a family who can nurse him for you with kindness? You see that she could have said that I know a child's mother. Right away, that would have broke it all open. The plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said, no. I'll tell you about Ahl Bayt and not just the mother. I'll tell you about their Ahl Bayt, a household, that which will provide for the baby. so that baby will be taken care of. They said, yes, fine, at this moment, anything you can do to make the child cry. She didn't run off. She went slowly so that nobody doubts. Also, when the mother comes, she doesn't show emotions, lest people find out that this emotional aspect can only come from a mother. These are all characters, brothers and sisters and the listeners, that we find in Quran of great women who played this role of taking care of these Anbiya. Number 6 is the wife of Musa, daughter of Shu'aib alayhi salatu wassalam. Very quickly about her, and inshallah, I'll bring it to one of the mothers of Karbala. The wife of Hazrat Musa, daughter of Shu'aib, you just realize the story of Hazrat Musa, that he had to run off, and because of the fear of being killed by Pharaoh, he was being chased by the people of Pharaoh, and he comes to Madain. Here, he's, helps out these two sisters, and once he helps them out, she says, our father wants to pay you for what you have done for us. So then they go towards the house. The method that is mentioned, how Hazrat Musa walks to the house. Riwayat mentioned that he said, I don't want to walk behind you ladies out of respect, but I don't know the way to your house. So I'll walk in front of you. You, by throwing the stones, tell me which direction should I turn, left or right. So this act of Hazrat Musa, when they arrive in the house, the daughter of Hazrat Shu'aib says, قالت إحداهما, one of them said, يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. Oh father, give him, pay him, compensate him for what he has done. Why? Because he's qawi and he's amin. He's, strong and he's trustworthy. Hazrat Shu'aib says, oh my daughter, I understand that you see that he's strong because he fetched water for you. He fought off those men who were not allowing you to stand at the well, and he gave water to you. So you can see his physical strength and his ability. But how did you learn that he's Amin? You don't know that he's Nabi. You don't know anything about him yet. She mentions how he kept the sanctity of not walking behind us, rather he walked ahead of us, lest lest he falls prey to the shaitan or to makes thinks badly of us. So she says this is where the concept of his amanat dari, him being trustworthy, comes into play. I know I've taken a lot of your time. I had other discussions over here as well in reference to the role of a mother. How the Prophet has mentioned a great deal when it comes to a person came and he said to the Holy Prophet that who should I be kind to? Man abarru. Prophet said, ummuka. He said, thumma man abarru. Then who should I be nice to, or who should I be kind to? Prophet said, ummuka. Then said, then who should I be kind to? Prophet said, ummuka. Then who should I be kind to? He said, abuka. 3 times Prophet said, make sure that you're kind to your mother, kind to your mother, kind to your mother. And then on the 4th occasion said, be kind to your father. Just shows you the importance that the Prophet is laying upon someone who's a mother. We find in many other riwayat, such as this one, that the mention of how a person who wanted to, who went and he took his mother upon his shoulders to go ahead and circumambulate the Kaaba, perform this ibadat of Umrah or even Hajj. And then when he came back, he said to the Holy Prophet, oh Prophet, have I compensated my mother for what she did for me when I was young? I want your attention on this last segment. Have I compensated for what my mother did for me? I bathe her, I take care of her, I feed her because she's very old, she cannot take care of her. I even took her for Hajj. I carried her on my back and I walked around Kaaba and I made sure that she performed all of the actions there. Have I paid back or repaid her for what she did to me? Either was referred to Imam or the Prophet. Masoom replies by saying, you have not paid for even 1 second when she carried you in her womb. You have not paid for even 1 second. You did all of that. You're taking care of her, you're providing for her, you're clothing her, you're feeding her, and you'd even perform hajj carrying her on your back. But your carrying her on your back has not paid for that 1 second, 1 instance. And when she carried you for those 9 months, you have not paid that. And then Prophet gives a reason behind it. It's not just, something to say, wow, there's a reason behind it. And fourth Imam also mentions that. I'm referring to you again, treatise of rights, treatise on rights, Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on your rahim, your family members, and your mother. Imam says, the reason you have not paid back is because when she was carrying you, she was doing it with all her love and willingness. She was protective of you. She was making dua for your long and healthy life. When you did it for her, you took it as that I'm doing this to achieve a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mother did it not asking for any reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So right away, there's a difference between when she carried you and when you are carrying her. You are looking for reward and thawab for doing something like this. And there's also on the back of your mind that sometimes you do get frustrated that how long do I have to go on feeding her, clothing her, taking care of her? That she's so old now, how long is this going to continue? And you keep reminding yourself that one day it'll end, because nobody's gonna be living forever. While when your mother is feeding you, when your mother is clothing you, when your mother is providing for you, she's not thinking how long this will last, when will this child die? No, she's actually making dua for your lengthy life. So there's a difference when she carried you, when she provided for you, when you carried her, and when you provided for her. And because of this difference, you have not even paid back for that 1 second and 1 instance when she carried you. Last woman that I want to talk about. These were the women in Quran. Now, this is the family which is called Quran Natiq. And this lady that I'm speaking about is Hazrat Zaynab Salamullah alayha. Because Marhuma, for whom Eisal-e-Sawab we are gathered together for this Majlis Aza, resembled as Ganiz of Hazrat Zaynab Salamullah alayha, resembled similar characteristics. Now, Janab Zaynab is referred to as, Sharikatul Hussein, Masaib, Razaya. The difficulty of taking the lead after Imam Hussein. Shair said it very beautifully. Hadith-e ishq do babas, Karbala wa Dimashq. Yeki Hussein raqam kard, digari Zaynab. That there are 2 chapters in Karbala, in this story of love. One was documented by Hussein up until the day he gave his shahadat. The second was, written by Zaynab Salamullah alayha from the moment Imam Hussein's shahadat takes place. And that's where you see her lead into how she went about doing things. She stands in the court of Yazid and she says, without any fear, she's lost all the family members. But look at the courage that she has, that she says, Inni la astazghiruka. That, oh Yazid, I, Zaynab, perceive you as very small, very little, of no value. Ay Yazid, tumhari ahmiyat mere samne astazghir, saghir, yani main tumhe chota, kam, yani jisme koi kisi kisam ki koi value nahi hai, koi arzish nahi hai mere samne tumhari. Yani आप इमेजिन करें एक खातून जो इस ट्रॉमा से गुजरी हो कि जिसने अपने भाई की कुर्बानी दी हो, अपने सिर्फ भाई की नहीं, अपने बच्चों की कुर्बानी दी हो, अपने बच्चों ही की नहीं बल्कि 18 और ऐसे जवानों की कुर्बानी दी हो जो कि शबाब बनु हाशिम में से इनका शुमार होता था। और उसके बावजूद जनाब ज़ैनब सलामुल्लाह अलैहा की ये बात है कि वो यजीद के सामने खड़े होकर ये कहती हैं कि मैं तुम्हें छोटा शुमार करती हूँ, तुम्हारी कोई अहमियत नहीं है मेरे सामने। मा रअयतु इल्ला जमीला, तुम कहते हो कि जो हमारे साथ हुआ वो बहुत बुरा हुआ, हमारे घर वालों को मार दिया गया और तुम कामयाब हो गए। कहा नहीं, मा रअयतु इल्ला जमीला, मैंने तो सिवाय खूबसूरती के कुछ देखा ही नहीं। क्योंकि अगर अल्लाह ये चाहता है कि हमें इस तरीके से शहीद कर दिया जाए تاکہ اسلام کا بول بالا ہو اور اسلام کے اس کھیتی کو جو ہے وہ آبیاری کی جائے ہمارے خون کے ذریعے. تو ہاں وہ کام ہم نے کر دیا. ما رائے تو اللہ جمیلا، میں تو سوائے خوبصورتی کے کچھ اور تھا. اس میں بڑا فلسفیانہ ایک پہلو ہے جس میں وقت میں گنجائش نہیں ہے کہ میں اس کے بارے میں آپ سے بولوں. یہ تو جناب زینب تھیں، لیکن ایسی بھی مائیں تھیں کربلا میں جن کا تعلق اس خاندان سے نہیں تھا، لیکن اس کے باوجود ان کا جذبہ، شہادت کا جذبہ. ایک شخص جو امام کے اصحاب میں سے تھا، جب اس کی شہادت واقع ہو جاتی ہے اور اس کے سر کو پھینک دیا جاتا ہے تو امام اس وقت اس کا بیٹا، اس شخص کا بیٹا جاتا ہے، جا کر کے قربانی دینے کا یہ جذبہ رکھتا ہے، مقتل کی طرف بڑھتا ہے. امام کہتے ہیں کہ واپس آ جاؤ، کون ہو تم؟ ابھی تو تمہاری ماں کے آنسو خشک نہیں ہوئے ہیں تمہارے باپ کی شہادت سے. جواب پتہ ہے کیا دیا؟ جنادہ بنت ابن الحارث السلمانی یہ کہتے ہوئے نظر آتے ہیں کہ جس ماں کی طرف آپ نے کا تذکرہ کر رہے ہیں کہ جس نے ابھی اس کے جو ہے وہ آنسو خشک نہیں ہوئے ہوں گے، وہی ماں ہے کہ جو مجھ کو بھیج رہی ہے کہ جاؤ امام حسین پہ قربان ہو جاؤ. یہ جذبے ہیں جو آپ کو کربلا میں نظر آئیں گے. جناب زینب سلام اللہ علیہ حضرت علی اکبر کی شہادت کے اوپر اس طریقے سے گریہ کیا کہ ایک باپ کس طریقے سے اپنے جوان سال بیٹے کی شہادت کو برداشت کر سکے گا. جناب زینب نے تمام توجہات کو اپنی طرف مبذول کر لیا. لیکن وہی زینب جو اتنا گریہ وزاری کر رہی ہے علی اکبر، علی اصغر کی شہادت کے اوپر، حسن کے بیٹے قاسم کی شہادت کے اوپر، عباس کی شہادت کے اوپر، حسین کی شہادت کے اوپر دو آنسو نہ بہائے اون محمد کی شہادت کے اوپر. ہاں یہ بی بی کس طریقے سے اس نے آنسوؤں کو روکا ہوگا، یہاں تک کہ وہ وقت آ گیا جب شام کے زندان میں ایک دفعہ مجلس عزا برپا ہوتی ہے، اہل بیت کو آزاد کر دیا جاتا ہے، یہ واپس جانے والے تھے، ایک مجلس برپا ہوتی ہے، اس مجلس میں تمام سروں کو لایا جاتا ہے، ایک ایک کر کے سر لائے جاتے تھے، ایک ایک بی بی آگے بڑھ کے امک کے اس سر کو اپنے کلیجے سے لگا لیتی تھی اور اس کے اوپر گریہ کرتی تھی. جیسے جیسے سر آتے جاتے تھے بیویاں بڑھتی تھیں اور گریہ وزاری بڑھتا جاتا تھا. لیکن دیکھا شامی عورتوں نے بھی یہ دیکھا منظر کہ ایک دفعہ دو ایسے چھوٹے سر آئے کہ ان کو کسی نے بڑھ کے آگے نہیں اپنی آغوش میں لیا اور نہ ہی کوئی ان کے اوپر گریہ کرتا ہوا نظر آیا. ایک دفعہ شامی عورتوں نے کہا کہ یہ بچے لاوارث ہیں، کوئی ان کا پوچھنے والا نہیں ہے، ان پہ کوئی گریہ کرنے والا نہیں ہے. زینب پہ کیا گزری ہوگی؟ جناب زینب نے جواب دیا ہوگا کہ نہیں، ان کی ماں موجود ہے مگر ان پہ کس طریقے سے گریہ کرے. ارے میں کس طریقے سے اپنے بچوں پہ گریہ کروں جبکہ جناب فاطمہ الزہرا کا لال ابھی تک کے موجود ہے، ان کے اوپر گریہ نہ کر سکوں گی. جب میں یہ کہتی ہیں جناب زینب، یہ کہتے ہوئے اپنے آپ کو دلاسا دیا. زینب نے کس طریقے سے اپنے ان احساسات کو دبایا ہوگا، یہاں تک کہ واپس مدینے پہنچتی ہیں، ماں کی قبر پہ حاضری دی. ارے ماں اور بیٹی کے درمیان کا رشتہ، وہ رشتہ کہ جس میں صرف اور صرف ماں اور بیٹی ہی جانتے ہیں کہ جو باتیں ایک دوسرے سے وہ کرتے ہیں کس طریقے سے ایک حجاب ہے ماں اور بیٹی کے درمیان. بیٹی آتی ہے ماں کی قبر پہ، آ کے کہتی ہے وہ باتیں جو زینب نے اب تک کسی سے نہیں کہی تھی، جناب سیدہ سے کہتی ہے ان کی قبر پہ بیٹھ کے، اے مادر گرامی مجھ پہ تازیانے برسائے گئے، ارے درے لگے، ارے تازیانوں کے ساتھ ساتھ کوڑے بھی پڑے، ارے گر چھین لیے گئے، چادریں چھن گئیں، یہ نیل کے نشان ہیں. میں کس طریقے سے دکھاؤں؟ جناب زینب کو آواز آئی ہوگی، اے زینب تیری ماں موجود تھی جب حسین کا سر قلم کیا گیا تھا، ارے ماں موجود تھی جب تیرے سر سے چادر چھنی تھی، جب کوہرام مچا تھا اور خیام میں آگ لگائی تھی. الا لعنت اللہ القوم الظالمین وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. بار الہ ہماری سے بات قبول فرما، ہم گناہ گار ہیں، ہمارے گناہوں سے درگزر فرما، ہمیں اہل بیت علیہ السلام کے نقش چلنے کی توفیق عطا فرما، ہمیں ان کی تعلیمات پر عمل کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما، ہمارے امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما، ہمیں ان کے آوان و انسا میں شمار کر. ایک دفعہ سورہ فاتحہ کی تلاوت کر کے مرحومہ اختر اخلاق بنت محمد تقی مرزا کی روح کو اصال کرتے ہیں. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صلى الله عليه وسلم. متوجہ زیارت. السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم اخیرت اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. زیارت وارث. السلام علیکم یا وارث آدم صفت اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث نوح نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث ابراہیم خلیل اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث موسیٰ کلیم اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث عیسی روح اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث محمد حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم یا وارث امیر المؤمنین ولی اللہ، السلام علیکم ابن محمد المصطفیٰ، السلام علیکم ابن علی المرتضی، السلام علیکم ابن فاطمة الزہراء، السلام علیکم ابن خدیجة الکبریٰ، السلام علیکم یا ثار اللہ وابن ثارہ والوتر الموتور. أشهد أن قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وطاعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به، يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الإصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والهجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبه، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زیادہ علی بن حسین. السلام علیکم ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم ابن نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم ابن امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکم ابن الحسین الشہید، السلام علیکم ایہا الشہید، السلام علیکم ایہا المظلوم وابن المظلوم، لعن اللہ امة قتلتك ولعن اللہ امة ظلمتك ولعن اللہ امة سمعت بذلك فرضیت به. زیارت الشہداء. السلام علیکم یا اولیاء اللہ وحباء، السلام علیکم یا اصفیاء اللہ وعبداء، السلام علیکم یا انصار دین اللہ، السلام علیکم یا انصار رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا انصار امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکم یا انصار فاطمة سیدۃ نساء العالمین، السلام علیکم یا انصار ابی محمد الحسن بن ولی للناس، السلام علیکم یا انصار ابی عبداللہ بأبی انتم وأمی طبتم وطابت الارض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. يا عباس. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن السيد الوسيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام، أشهد لك نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، ولعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصح والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك الشمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض طوس ليبدأ موسى الرضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك شريك القرآن، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على